The focus on this video is on multiple day sitting, multiple day testing. So we're going to look at what to do to exit testing for a multiple day sitting. We're going to look at what to do to direct examinees to log out of TestNav. And for multiple day sittings, we're going to learn how to resume testing for a multiple day sitting. So if you have students taking tests over multiple days, the room supervisor is going to have to resume testing for those students. So let's look at those three items. All right, so the first one, exit testing for a multiple day sitting. For test timings approved to test over multiple days, the test session needs to be exited at the end of each sitting and then resumed at the beginning of each next sitting. Number one, make sure all examinees have submitted the test they were working on and are now on the screen for the next test, where they will continue in the next sitting. So for example, if they only took English for today, then when they submit the English, then in TestNav, it goes directly to the next test where they have to enter the seal code. Do not give them the seal code. They're going to then, number two, you are then going to direct the examinees to log out of TestNav. So again, when they submit the English test, now this is multiple days, not single day, multiple days. When they submit that English test, for example, and they're going to take the math test the next day, the in TestNav is going to go directly to the math test where they have to enter the seal code. Again, do not give them the seal code because they're going to take the test tomorrow or whenever they do it the next day. You're going to direct the examinees to log out of TestNav. And then number three, once you do that, you're then going to lock the test session. Okay? Important. Do not mark the examinee's test complete. Do not do that. Only mark the examinee's test complete if they were dismissed, something like that, dismissed, and they're not coming back to take the test, became ill, and will not take a makeup or will not come back and take the test. Let's say you mark the examinee's test complete at that point. But if they're coming back for test 2 and they're going to come back for test 3 and they're going to come back for test 4, do not mark the examinee's test complete. Okay? All right, follow the steps exactly. All right, so that was exit testing for multiple sitting. Then the next thing, direct examinees to log out. So here's what you can do to tell them to log out. So there are several ways. To have an examinee log out of TestNav, instruct them to A, press Control-Alt-Delete on Windows, or B, select Sign Out of TestNav. So this is probably the one you would use anyway on the Chromebook, and even on a desktop of Windows, you can have them sign out of TestNav from the user drop-down menu. It's pretty easy. So I would just use B, have them select Sign Out of TestNav from the user drop-down at the top of their screen. The examinee is logged out and the timer on the examinee's test is stopped. On the administrative computer, the examinee's status is exited. All right, so if you go back and refresh your administrative computer, you will see it is exited. All right, so remember how to refresh. So remember, the refresh button is right here, right? The refresh button is right here. All right. So we looked at that in several of the previous videos. All right, now look at the note right here. It says, note, an exited status requires an irregularity report if not part of breaks as needed or multiple day administrations. So remember, we're doing multiple day administration here. So even though the student is listed as exited, you do not do an irregularity report. Okay, only do an irregularity report if you see the word exited and it's on a single day testing. All right. So whenever, for multiple day sittings, whenever an examinee logs out of TestNav after the first test, it becomes exited. Do not do an irregularity report for that. All right. And then let's talk about resume testing. Okay, so let's look at resume testing for multiple day sittings. All right, so completed by the room supervisor. And also, just to let you know, the test coordinator can do that as well. Okay, so number one, in Pearson Access Next, unlock the test session. All right, and you all know how to unlock a test session. Number two, resume the exited test status test for each examinee. And you're going to see how to do this in a little while. Three, start TestNav on each examinee's computer. So remember, they're coming in for a second test, right? So you come in the morning, you have their authorization tickets, you have the seal code for the second test that they're going to be taking, and you have to make sure that TestNav is on the examinee's computer, either on the desktop or on the Chromebook. Number four, when the examinees are seated, redistribute the student authorization tickets. Make sure all examinees receive their own. Note, if the examinee used a student authorization ticket as scratch paper, give the examinee a new ticket. All right, so what that means is this. If on the first test or the previous test an examinee wrote on their authorization ticket, you must give them a new ticket. All right, so do not give them any authorization tickets from previous day if they wrote on it. Number five, give examinees a fresh sheet of blue scratch paper and have them write their name and today's date at the top. Number six, direct the examinees to log in. The examinees will see the screen for the next test where they left off. So if they logged out of after test one, which is English, when they go back in, when they log back into TestNav, it will bring them to the math test. And then 7, continue testing with the next test. Okay? All right, so let's look at each one of those in the practice realm. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and sign in as a student in the practice in the training part of ACT, the training platform. So let's say the username is, I'll go ahead and go in as a student. So the username is 401 069266, and then the password is 6FC24F. All right, so I'll go ahead and sign in. And so when I sign in, let's see, I'm trying to record this, and let's see what happens. So when I sign in, the username password is not correct. So let me just make sure. So 401069266. Okay, let's do the password again. So 6FC24F. So let's do that again. Okay, so let's see what's happening. Okay, so it says that this test has been locked. All right, so we got to make sure it's unlocked. So I'll unlock the test. You can see right here. Let me show you. So I've unlocked the test, right? So there are 3 students. I'm just going in as one of them. All right, so it's been unlocked. So now let's see what's going to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in. All right, it's loading. All right, hopefully it'll work. All right, it's still loading. All right, so there we go, I think. All right, so this is what the students are going to see. So there are 5 sections. We talked about those 5 sections before. So remember the first 3 questions, you'll see what they're going to look like. Here's the English. So the English is 75 questions. The math is 60. And the reading and science are both 40 each. All right, so we're going to go ahead and click on Start. And by the way, see that little drop down right here? This is where you would sign out of TestNav on multiple day sittings. So at the end, when students complete that first test, let's say English or whenever it is, and they're going to take the second test the next day or whenever the next sitting is, this is where they go. So right here, you just go to click on sign out of TestNav, and then it's going to be exited in your in PA Next for that student. It'll say exited. Okay, so let me just go through here. Let's just go through here. So start pre-test information and test security. So that's at session 1. And it's loading. Let's see. Come on, let's go. All right. And contact information, it says that all of the asterisks are required, but I think for this training module, it'll let you go on without filling out anything. So I'm just going to go on. So when you do, if you are doing or when you get to the mock administration, I think it'll work if you just go to the arrow and not fill out anything. But for the actual test, the students are required to complete this information. So notice a mailing address. So that's where the scores will be sent, to the mailing address they put here. All right, so let's go to the arrow. Hopefully it'll let us go through. Yep. And then I don't think there are any state questions. So just go ahead and click to the next arrow. And then they get to the examinee's agreement. And so they have to complete this before moving on. So they have to click on agree. And then, by the way, make sure you're reading the instructions verbatim in the manual. So the manual says, have the examinees read this, and when they're done, have them raise their head or look at you, so you'll know that they've completed this part. And then you go into the next one, to the next, and this is the end of the pretest. So that was section 1. So they're done with section 1, and they click submit. So when they click submit, section exit warning, I'm going to say yes, and then they're at the English test. Okay, so remember, always in the administration manual, regardless of which timing code you're on, make sure you read the directions verbatim. Make sure you follow directions one right after another. At some point in the manual, administration manual, it's going to tell you to give the students the seal code. And so you're going to tell them the seal code for English. And so let's say the English seal code is 3828. All right. And so you and the proctor will walk around to make sure that when they click on start, they're at this question, and notice a timer starts. Timer starts at that point. Once they enter the seal code, the timer starts. Okay, and so they'll be given the instructions, and then they go on. And so they go through each of those items like this. So they read the passage, they answer the question, and they continue on. Okay, just like that. And so the items are here. I mean, the problem they're on out of 75 is here. The timer is here. Be very careful. Make sure that students don't make a mistake and sign out of TestNav, because then you have to go in and you have to resume, and you have to do an irregularity report on that case. All right. So if they sign out of TestNav inadvertently, you have to explain what happened. All right. So right here, there's an enable magnifier. So if a student needs to look at the words in bigger letters, I don't think you can expand this. It looks like that's all you get. You can just move it around. That's it. There is show line reader mask. This right here that they can use, right? And then let me go ahead and check this one off. And then they can enable answer masking like that. See, like this. So things like that. All right. But see, all of this is together, right? So be careful. They can inadvertently sign out of TestNav. So be careful around this area right here. At least the students need to be careful, right? Okay, so let's continue on. So let's go into the next question. So they answer the question. They could bookmark a question. Let's say they read the passage and having trouble with answering it. They could bookmark it and come to it later. See this review right here? So when they click on review, here the items that were answered. The orange, see the orange here, not answered. This one's bookmarked, right? and then to continue on. So let's say they did not answer that. They go on. Let's say they read the passage. They answer this. Notice the timer's going down. And keep on going, just like this, right? I'm just showing you what it looks like. So I'm just quickly answering some questions here. And just to let you know, the English, for the standard time, the English test is not 15 minutes, right? So we all know that it's 45 minutes for standard time English. It's just that with the training module or with the training platform, all of the tests are 15 minutes. And so that helps with the mock administration. All right, keep on going, just like this, answer, and so on, right? So fairly easy, right? Okay, and then I'm just going to do this. And so I'm just going to go ahead and log out or end the test right here because I don't want to keep doing this because you have the idea. So I'm going to go ahead and, by the way, if you want to go back to the bookmark right here, the student wants to go back, they just click on it. It's question 6. They click on question 6, and it brings them to that item. See that? So fairly simple. So I'm going to go to review. I'm going to have the student in the test. So go to review, have the student in the test. And this is where, by the way, this is where you would go if a student comes late after break, let's say. Let's say the student comes after break. Remember, if they come in late after break, they don't make up the time. So the room supervisor and the proctor has to keep track of that time. So they, if this is the English test, let's say science. I'm sorry, science or reading. Reading is the third test. So the reading test is 35 minutes. So if they come in 5 minutes after break, they only have 30 minutes. So the room supervisor has to keep track of that. And so at the end of that 30 minutes, then the room supervisor will tell the students, go to review, scroll all the way down, and then end of section. So let me show you what's going to happen when they click end of section. So you may have this. All right, you may have that situation. So end of section, they're going to click this, and then it's going to say submit. So just go ahead and submit. And then you're about to leave this section and will not be able to return once you exit. Are you sure you want to leave? The answer is yes. Okay, and then now we're at mathematics. All right, so let's talk about multiple day testing. All right, so the student's only taking English during that first day, right? Okay, for multiple day testing. So at the end of the test, which they just submitted, right? They just submitted. You're going to tell them, go to the drop-down menu, and then you're going to sign out of TestNav. So that's where they go to sign out of TestNav. So for multiple day testing, you're going to instruct the student, and that's in the manual. So read the manual verbatim, carefully, as it states. So you're going to have them sign out of TestNav, and it's going to say, I want to exit this test and finish later. The answer is yes, because they're going to come back the next day to start test 2 for multiple day testing. So say save and return later, and look at what happens. And then it automatically signs them out. You see that? So sign out complete. Thank you for using TestNav. Now you're going to go now to your administrative computer right here, and you see all of this says ready. So I don't remember which one was a student I just logged in as, but that's okay. So you're going to go and you're going to refresh, right? So you're going to go to refresh right here. That's where you're going to refresh. So you're going to click on refresh, and then watch. See right here. So if all of those students, let's say all those students were taking the test, and then all three, you told at end of test 1, now remember multiple day testing, at end of test 1, you told them to sign out of TestNav. Then all 3 will have stated exited. Since this is part of multiple day testing, do not do an irregularity report, because you're told that that's what you had to do. You had to tell them to sign out of TestNav, right? Okay. Now, here's what you got to do next. So let me remind you. All right, so you told them, so we're back here. All right, so you told them to exit testing for multiple day testing, right? And you told them to to log out. Okay, so which we did. Now what you have to do is you have to get ready to resume testing for multiple day sitting. All right, so let's talk about how to do that. By the way, I forgot to remind you. So remember, you now have to remember for multiple day sittings at the end of the first day when you tell the students to log out of TestNav, don't forget to lock the test. And it's in the manual, so it's pretty easy to see this. So don't forget to lock the test. All right, so let's go ahead and lock the test. The test is now locked. See the little padlock? So the padlock is on it. Okay? All right, so then the next day, so let's say this is the next day. So the next day you come back and you go to your sessions, right? You find your session. So this is my session right here. Okay, it's in progress. So I'm going to go and put a little arrow next to my session. I'm going to go to show students in sessions, control sessions, and there we are back to where we were the day before. Okay? All right, so let's talk about how to resume testing. Pretty easy to do. Okay, so all of these students will have exited. Now it is possible that one of the students didn't show up, right? So if, remember, you can only, let me remind you, first, let's say this is a second test. All students must be working on the second test. So let's say one student was absent and it's the next day and the student's now working the second test. If that student that was absent did not take the first test, then that student cannot be in this room taking the second test. So the test coordinator would have needed to move the student out, remove the student, and put him in a different session, either all by himself or with a class in which they are working on the second test. But remember, timing codes must be with the same timing code, cannot mix timing codes. All right. But ideally, when you get back to that second test the next day, all students will have said exited. Okay, they will have said exited. Okay, so then what you're going to do is you're going to see where it says the little drop down right here. See where it says exited, a little drop down. All you do is just say resume. That's all you do. So resume, and then let's see. It should. There we go. And now it's resumed. Okay, and so let me show you what's going to happen now. All right, so it's resumed, right? So now all of them would say resumed if they were all exited. I just am playing around and just showing you how to resume. So you could resume each one individually like this, right? Okay, so let's look at resume testing. So notice what I just did. So the first thing well, I didn't do that yet, but I guess I also need to unlock the test, right? So I've got to unlock the test. Then the second step was I got to resume the exited status test for each examinee. And then, just like you did the day before, you're going to go to each computer and you're going to start TestNav. So that's where we are so far. So the only thing I hadn't done yet was I unlocked the test. Let me go ahead and unlock the test because notice the padlock is on each one. So we go ahead and unlock. And now, just give it a few more seconds. And now the padlock is gone. All right. But all of them would say resumed if all the students you were there yesterday and you told all of them to log out of TestNav after test 1. Okay. Now, so now you're going to follow the manual. And so basically at this point, after step number 3, where you started TestNav, step number 4, when examinees are seated, redistribute the authorization tickets. Make sure all examinees have their own. If the examinee used the student authorization ticket as scratch paper, give the examinee a new ticket. 5, give examinees a fresh sheet of blue scratch paper and have them write their name and today's date at the top. Make sure they do that. The name and today's date at the top. Direct the examinees to log in. The examinee will see the screen for the next test where they left off. And then continue testing with the next test. So let me show you what it looks like. So let me go ahead and move all of this. All right, so I'm going to go and sign back in right here. I'm going to put the username and password of the same one I used a while ago. And so let's see, that was 40106926636, and the password 6FC24F. All right, so let's see what happens, right? So let's see what happens. Okay, sign in. All right, so here we go. It should bring them to test 2, right? So the math test, hopefully it does. Let's see. All right, come on, math test, hopefully. There we go. Well, let's see. Okay, see it says resume, right? Okay, so that's a good thing. Use the word resume. So I'm going to click on resume. See right here the word resume? So let's click on it. So I'm resuming, and now it's a math. So it brings it where they left off. And so you just enter the seal code, and you go from there. So the seal code for this particular test is 2491. The student enters that, and they continue on as they were previously. The timer starts once they enter the seal code. That's when the timer starts. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and remember, if a student comes in late during a test, you have to keep track of that time. The student does not make up that time. So remember what you have to do. The timers, if the student, let's say, has 5 minutes left and you call time, it's still going right here. So you have to tell the student, or you have to do this, go to review right here, scroll all the way down, and end the test for the student, because their time's up. They cannot make up the time. End section, submit, and then yes. Okay. All right, and then you keep on the process. So for the next day, at the end of, let's say, math, and you're going to do reading and science on the same day, you have them log out, just like you did before. Sign out, and then save and return later, and that's it. So that's how you deal with multiple day testing in terms of, and let me show you what we did. All right, so we talked about exit testing for multiple day sitting. We talked about directing the examinees to log out of TestNav, and we talked about resume testing for multiple day sitting. Okay, so that is the end of this video.